Hi, my name is Gregg Ortiz. I'm the owner of Timeless Heart Company. We produce one-of-a-kind limited edition dolls, and also licensed products. I'm opening my studio to share with you different facets of the product that I actually currently make, and I hope you enjoy.
Greg, thank you so much for welcoming us into your doll world.
Thank you for having me.
Was there a particular time where you knew that you wanted to pursue a career in doll making?
Not doll making, but in the art industry, I did know that that was kind of a call for me. I knew that at an early age that when I was in school, we were brought to a library, we were allowed to choose a book or literature type form to find something of interest. And I was drawn to third dimension art forms. I found a book of a company of an old factory where a gentleman was actually producing dolls, and he was kind of engulfed in the background of just a plethora of body parts of dolls, and he was hand painting one. And from there it just kind of stuck. I saw images throughout the years of just dolls, but I just felt attracted to them in some way, still not knowing in what direction I would take my life or career. Soon thereafter, had the opportunity to but actually be at an event in New York City at the Javits Center where they viewed industrial contemporary art forms. And it was just completely filled with all these amazing artists that brought their own interpretations of what they viewed as dolls. So upon that, I met several artists, and in that time frame that I was there was one artist in particular that befriended me. Her name was Pat Thompson of Vlasta Doll Company. It was in the 90s, and it's something about chemistry. You meet somebody, you connect, and she obviously saw something in me before I did. And upon befriending each other, and spending time with one another, I knew I wanted to work for her as a designer or just kind of have some type of affiliation with her. And she asked me to produce a doll. And I kind of looked at her and I thought, that's odd, because I just kind of wanted to design, I just want to sketch, I just want to draw, because I knew that that was my forte. And she said, let's do this. I will make a deal with you. I will give you a bar of clay. I will give you a glass pair of eyes, and you make something. Doesn't matter what it is. I'll give you 6 months, and if you cannot sculpt, I will then hire you as a designer. I thought that was kind of an easy way of kind of getting into the business, so I took on her incentive. I did that. Shortly thereafter, I ended up producing a I have to look because she's right next to me, four-tailed mermaid over thousands of hand-sewn freshwater pearls, 4 wigs. I actually took my mother's costume jewelry, which if she ever sees this video, she'll know that I took it because I've been in denial ever since. And I used it to incorporate this mermaid that I had in my vision to present to this artist that I've looked up to so long. Thereafter, she told me, she said, once I took the item to her, she looked at me, she goes, you don't need me. She says, you just need to show your work. And she made the arrangements for me to present my work in the 90s to the world. And that is kind of like where my whole career started.
Now, is there a determination in the mood for sculpting prior to beginning to create the piece?
I personally think so. I think that there's something part of one, there's like an energy, or there's something that is within that projects through your work, whether it's in sculpting, whether it's in painting, whether it's in any type of artistry. You can convey that energy because it's something that's personal to you. And even though I didn't see it in my work, throughout the years I've seen it through other people's work that I collected prior to sculpting.
Are there any influences that will help you to create the doll that will speak to you?
For me personally, it would be my experiences. Prior to sculpting, I was an entertainer and a dancer, so performing I found myself drawn to colors and cultures and things that were very intricate and detailed oriented. And so that is something that I try to impose into my work so that I can convey the type of emotions that I feel
And
at that time.
that guides the outcome towards the end result.
Yes, it is. And people say the dolls look like me. I don't see it at all. But I see so prior to me sculpting, I collected. So I can say that I guess that probably would be correct, because when I collected other people's work, I would see their images in their work. So maybe that's an energy thing, or maybe that's just something that subliminally we just don't know.
Now, when speaking out licensed characters, is the desire to produce a certain character a reflection of a special time in your life?
Yes. So when I took on pursuing licensing, it was very important to me because it was something that I grew up with, and it was very comforting to me as a child. Every weekend I would spend watching cartoons, and I never thought that I would have the opportunity that would arise that I could be able to be part of history. But I knew that if I had that opportunity, I needed to choose those things that were beloved from me, because I wanted to project quality. I wanted to project something that was timeless and something that would be loved forever. Sometimes we take things so personally that we can kind of box ourselves in, and I didn't want that. I wanted to make sure that I stayed true to what character I choose. I did the amount of study that took, and work in conjunction with product development of the companies that were involving it. So it was kind of like a match made in heaven.
Now, you're obviously passionate about this. What's your favorite thing to do? What really makes you enjoy the most being involved in creating dolls?
For me, I would say it would have to be the fact that when I sculpt, I'm able to disconnect to reality. And I don't mean reality as in live a life of fantasy, but just kind of bring through the things that bring joy to me. And I think that if I can encapsulate those things into an item that can project that energy to other people and share that love that I feel when I view things, then I've captured everything that I wanted to pursue.
If you had a chance to start all over again, would you choose this career again?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I would have realized my potential at an earlier age, to have that extra time to just bring to life all of the things that I'm doing now. But I wouldn't change one thing.
Give me an advice for all the artists that are trying to get inspired right now and get into this business.
Surround yourself by the people that support you. Always believe in yourself. If you have any doubt, just take a moment, think of why you're doing it, and then take that advice to yourself and know that you're true to what you're pursuing. Because at the end of the day, we have one life. We have to leave some type of legacy. So if we can do it in a positive form, then that's what I would advise everybody to do.
Any regrets?
In my doll career? No. You know, one thing I've learned, that good or bad, there's a lesson to learn in life. Even the things that maybe veered us in any way, or any doubts that we had, and we had bad experiences, there was a lesson there. And so we should never take for granted either or. And we should use that experience to then catapult ourselves to excel the best of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Out of all your creations, which one was your first license?
It would be Disney World. They had a convention and where they allotted artists to bring their own interpretations, obviously with the guidelines of product development. And so I produced several actually additions to the company. First one was a Walt Disney World Mickey Mouse Classics. Then we did a Pie-Eyed Mickey. We pursued a Winnie the Pooh, and we auctioned off a Little Mermaid doll where she was hand dyed green, and it was sequins and beadwork, and it just was a beautiful, wonderful, one of a kind for an auction for Disneyana. And thereafter we were able to do different variations of the Mickey Mouse. This particular piece that we have here is a one of a kind piece that was going to be produced for the convention, and this one is actually a music box. So if I turn it over here, hopefully I didn't overwind it, but it's a theme of Sleeping Beauty, and the 4 panels that are featured is Maleficent, Sleeping Beauty, the 3 fairies, and we have the Prince and Sleeping Beauty at the end. So it's kind of like a storybook in itself. And then on top of that, we have the Prince himself, which is Mickey Mouse. And that's where we have him featured. And because I overwinded him, we're going to have to listen to this whole song.
And what made you choose this artist?
They have to be personal to me. It's something I grew up with and something that I've embraced throughout the years, and it nurtured me and it made me very comfortable, or it comforted me. So it's things that are very to my heart on how I choose the characters.
So I'm sure every single one has something special about him. What would you say?
Yeah, so I knew that once I decided to move forward with any other license, and I wanted to be part of history because that was the goal, I needed to bring something not only that I could articulate to the masses, but I needed to bring the quality and something that would separate my work from every other collectible that I've done research on. So with these specific 3 characters, starting with the Jim Hensons, this was a specific item that was produced for the 30th anniversary of Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock. Though this one is specifically for the anniversary, what they all 3 have in common is that they're all ball jointed. Ball jointed is a concept that is used for dolls that have specific articulations and posabilities throughout their body. But I found through my research that sometimes it's usually limited from the extremities of the bodies. So all 3 pieces are all full body sculpts, and they have what's called, and I'm going to separate this right here to show specifically.
Do you always make sure that they have a unique style?
Yeah, so obviously they're iconic in their own way. This one's more glamorous. This is something that was the girlfriend of Popeye, which we all knew that was very supportive to Popeye. And then this character here, she was the famous one of the VIP 5 of the Fraggle Rock. But the parts of what makes it so special is because they're full body sculpts, you're able to pose them with these, I guess, connections that are placed once the item is sculpted. We make these breaks and we put these little ball joints in between them so that this way when you pose them, you can kind of get mobility and get emotion additional to what the painting and the quality of the construction and engineering is.
So this is where the magic happens.
Yes, so here in the studio, this is where we conceptualize design, concepts, and engineering of the collection that I have anticipated for whichever event I'm about to do. We start out, for me, the color aspects, hues, and texture. As you can see here, we bring in, though it's the same type of colors and different variations of the same hue, it's very important to embrace the texture to bring the different layers that are going to finish the actual garment. And then obviously it has to be in harmony of what the energy that I'm trying to project through the official expressions on the doll.
Do you start from head to toe?
Yeah, I actually do. For when it comes to fashion, obviously we need more of an elegant, more thin, sophisticated look. And so the expressions have to match everything. Proportions is key. And I believe that through the hands, it projects what type of emotion I'm trying to instill in the piece. So in this particular piece, I love larger dolls. For some reason, even though I can sculpt in smaller scale, I prefer personally to sculpt in a larger setting. But each doll is hand sculpted. This is the process. Basically, I sculpt the initial doll in the preferred medium. For me, it's been paper clay, which is a volcanic ash and paper pulp medium, and it's sculpted in layers. Once I'm happy with the finished outcome, I then move on to creating a mold. And the reason why I do the molds is because this particular medium is very fragile. And so it wouldn't really endure the shipping process to where when I do items in resin or porcelain or cultured glass, that is more structured and allows me to ship the items without any damages.
So when you have the doll in front of you, what inspired you to decide if it's going to be a fancy dress, if it's going to be a more casual dress, or even a character?
It varies. Most of the time I go with instincts on textures of fabrics. But there's days that sometimes I have to sketch something that maybe is in my mind. I'm not sure what direction I'm going for. But at the end of the day, it will always be the texture of the fabrics that I choose. If I can't find the fabrics that I want, then I will resort to dyeing the fabrics. And then from there, it allows me to then direct me to pursuing how I'm going to go about it.
How long does it usually take you from beginning to end?
When I first started, it took me years. I'm kidding. It took me 6-7 months. Now I've got it down to where I could sculpt something and have something produced within 5-6 weeks.
And what's the next step? Once you have it all done, do you move to a different part of your workshop, or do you start and finish everything in the same spot?
So now what I normally do is, because sometimes when you're constantly on something, things can get muddled. I will then work on a specific item for a certain amount of time and move on to another item. So I can work tandemly with several items at the same time. It allows me to kind of like take a breath and kind of regroup and view things in a fresh manner.
Now you're also a doll collector. Let's talk about your collections.
Yes, so it ranges. When I first started, it was in the 80s. Before I started into the doll industry, I started in the 80s. I went to this, I don't want to say it's a doll shop. It was kind of a collectible gift store. And I had just recently moved to Florida, walked into this store, and I saw this doll that was sitting on the floor. It was out of porcelain. Come to find out, I didn't know really what anything was in regards to these dolls, but the doll that I had viewed was a Hempstead doll. She was out of porcelain. Come to find out, she never produced porcelain dolls. It was a counterfeit. Yet I still purchased the doll because it was so well made. Upon doing more research and then really kind of investing the time of making myself knowledgeable, that kind of directed me and zoned me into the doll world. And that kind of started my career.
How many collectible dolls do you own right now?
Currently, to my knowledge, because it's selective memory, I want to say over 2,500.
And can you show me some of them?
Dolls. Yes. So I have for you several examples of dolls that I also restore that I'm very passionate about. Some of them are play pals, as many know now that I collect, but also additional to them in that same range, there was dolls that were produced as what's called companion dolls and different manufacturers. So let me briefly go through them. Now what I'm going to show you is what they look like before and the process that it takes to restore them. So this particular item, she's an African American doll. They're the most rarest because they were the most limited when they were produced. A lot of times with these specific dolls, it's a 35-inch doll. Normally the markings, you would find them in the lower part of the neck. This particular one is an AE, which stands for Allied Eastern. They were produced in the 50s. And what makes this one so special, even though you see that she needs some work and she needs some TLC, is that one, she's African American. Two, the hair that is used is what's called a saran hair. It's a synthetic fiber. These are dolls that were always meant to be played with, and obviously were played with, but have lasted due to the quality of the manufacturing of this product. It's a hard blown vinyl on the arms and the limbs. The torso is a blown plastic, so it's kind of hard. And sometimes, mostly with this doll, if there was any damages, it would normally be towards the torso. You find issues usually with the eyelashes. They're all I want to say plugged, but there's a slit that goes in the eyes, and that's where the eyelashes, but normally that's what the deterioration throughout the years after 50 years old. But once I obtain them, I replace or restore any of the hair, whether it's through conditioning. And then once all that's completed, these are end result examples of dolls that I've restored myself. So this one is more of a straight bang cut hair. She's all original. The companion dolls versus a Play Pal doll. The difference is companion dolls normally came with a banner that said, "I will walk with you." Play Pal dolls are normally produced by Ideal Toy Company, and those are the creme de la creme because the quality of the vinyl and the garments are were more rich in production. However, either or are still in demand. They're both 34, 35 inches. The African American one, it's very difficult to find them with this banner because normally this is the first thing that gets torn. But in this example, she is all original, from her synthetic socks to her vinyl shoes. The companion dolls, the difference between those and the Ideal is that these were always vinyl, the shoes. With the Play Pals, which are the most sought after, those were a patent leather and they were buckles. And they did 3 variations of shoes. One were produced in the US and 2 of them were produced in China. So these particular ones are called companions. Some of them have markings. This one has AE, which is Allied Eastern, and then this one does not have anything. So it's just considered a companion doll because other companies jumped on the market at in the 50s to produce these dolls. This is completely restored. This dress, the reason how, or the way you can find or know that this is original is there were no buttons on these dolls. They were faceted snaps, which is called a factory snap. And this dress, I was lucky enough to find mint in package, and I was able to add it to this doll. But if you see here, these snaps are all faceted. There's no buttons. And then once I condition the hair, it goes through an extensive process of restoring with conditioning and cleaning. This is what the outcome would look like as if it just came out from the store. This particular one is what I was speaking about, which is the creme de la creme in the doll industry of this height doll. It's called Patty Play Pal, produced in the 50s by an artist called Neil Eastern. This is from the Ideal Toy Company in New York City, which I grew up in, 2 blocks away from the store. But this is where everybody starts. And this was the very first Play Pal that started my collection in this size.
So just to have an idea, how much do they go for?
If they're in wonderful condition and in complete original status, they can range anywhere from $800 to $1,200, $1,500. Maybe a little bit more, depending on the garment that they're wearing. This particular garment is the purple floral, And this is one of the garments of 3 that were produced. I think there was a pinwheel, a rose dress, and then the purple. The organdy dress, or the pinafore that it comes with, it's very hard to find this embroidery. This, for some reason, gets torn, and because this sheer fabric is so delicate, normally the tearing from where it was gathered deteriorates, or depending on the playwear. But if you're lucky enough, you're able to find something like this, or maybe try to find the garments later after.
Now, you mentioned that these dolls are from the 50s. Where did you find them still?
I started early, so before, I guess there was a time where these dolls were really sought after, and then, you know, as any collectible, it kind of fluctuates. I kind of started when it was on the lower end, but now obviously the word is getting out again, and so it's harder to find. But auctions, estate sales, thrift stores, it's just kind of being knowledgeable of what you're looking for. And then even if you find the items without the clothing, if you know what they came with through the history and research, you're able to put something together.
So what's the difference in between this type of doll and the
Other
other
dolls?
ones that are the same size?
Well, from first glance, they kind of look all the same. But there are signature looks to each collection. This specifically is my new kind of sought after doll. It's from the company American Doll Company. And that also, I find that a lot of the dolls that I'm interested in are kind of like in the 50s, 40s, maybe 60s, but larger dolls. And these have the same type of style. What differentiates this one is that this particular doll, even though they still have the ball joints, normally in the wrists, I believe it's the inner part of the inner thigh, but this is so cool. So I found one of these at a store, and at glance it's just a normal doll, but when you move her legs, her head shifts from side to side, and that's kind of intrigued me mostly because of the mechanics and the engineering, because back then, I mean, to me, that's just really ahead of their history. This particular doll is completely mint, from the shoes, the socks, the dress, her bonnet that sits on the top made of felt. Many times you find these dolls and the first thing that's missing is the hat, any type of accessories, the floral that was on there, and the shoes. So using this as a guide, it's helped me, aside from looking up in books, how to continue purchasing the dolls and knowing the style and the custom quality that they had.